In 1972, we came to Alaska with our own boat finally, and commercial fishing for salmon, and we wanted to find a place where we could settle. We didn't want to just go to town on the weekends and kind of party in the bars, and we just were looking for a place to settle, and we found this place, Point Baker, and it was a community, and there was good fishing there, and there was 2 little towns, no roads, 60 people in each town, and they welcomed young people. It was just a great experience. They showed us the good places to fish. It was really exciting. And we found a piece of land. It was like a little island basically, and $14,000, 10% down, 5% interest, and we were so excited about building a cabin in Alaska. So went back to Seattle that winter in our boat, and planning to build a really nice cabin. Of course, the boat needed stuff. We needed a new radar. So as our money got smaller, the cabin got smaller. Okay, and finally, it's like, okay, what's the minimum that we can do? So 12 by 16. Okay, 12 by 16 is not much, but it was going to have a sleeping loft up above and a 4-foot covered porch out back. So that winter, we scrounged around yard sales in Seattle. We bought, shingles that were, not secondhand, but, shingles on sale. We got, used windows. We found a porcelain oil range, used, and then we built a cabinet, for a sink and the drawers and everything, and we had the big stuff shipped up on a tender, a fish buying boat belonging to a friend. And then we loaded our fishing boat, 32-footer, down to the gills, the holds all full of supplies. And then we towed a 16-foot wooden skiff with, the shingles and more supplies. So we got to Point Baker 3 weeks before the fishing season started, and we were going to put our cabin up. And in those days, the mail boat came out once a week in the middle of the night. So we ordered our lumber from the sawmill in Wrangell, and the idea was it comes banded, with metal bands, and they would, we would meet the mail boat at 2 a.m. when it came in, and they would lower the wood into the water, and then we'd tow it out to our cabin site the next day. Well, they lowered the wood into the water. It kept going. The locals call it pond dried. It was hemlock, and it was so green and wet, it wouldn't even float. So put the wood on the dock, and then, started shuttling loads out to our cabin site the next day. The wood was so green that if you missed the nail, you would get splashed. There's so much water in the wood. And the first day I bent my handsaw, cutting the first 2x6, but in 2 weeks, we created this gorgeous little structure. It was tiny, 12 by 16, but the windows looked out on the water, and for our water supply, we had a rain barrel. One of the things we bought in Seattle, it was an old Scotch barrel, so your water tasted like a really weak Scotch and water. And but we put this cabin together, and we could have our boat right out in front of the cabin. And I'd always heard it said that if you're a commercial fisherman and you can look out your front window and see your boat, you're living your dream. Plus, there was this extra that we even hadn't had anticipated. Right out in front of where our cabin was is a place called West Rock, and the tide turns the corner there, the north end of Prince of Wales Island, so there's a tide rip there. And the whales would hang out there. And so on a still night, you could lie in our bed, and you could hear the whales breathing. It was magic.